Rolling.
So there's three different setups that you can do. One of the setups is shown in the manual here, where they have the person kind of in a supine reclined position with the foot flexed. And I'll show you I can show you how to do that. It is considered to be kind of somewhat of a soleus biased position because the knee is bent. What I have found, so I've tested multiple people in the, immediately following this position, and then actually in a prone position, and such that it's kind of a test-retest and looking at the consistency between it. And there's consistently about a 40 to 60% reduction in their force capacity with the leg completely straight versus in this position. So I think that the best way that I've seen to get good soleus activation or testing would be if you were going to try and isolate the two, but they're depending on the study that you read, that you can actually get pretty good. They would, even though this is biased to the knee bent position, and they say it's like theoretically soleus, they've also shown that there's like decent activation of both muscle groups, even in a knee straight position. So I'll leave that to your clinical judgment, and I can certainly help you to set this up as well, because there may be relevance. If someone has a soleus strain, for instance, and that's high grade and it's deeper within the calf muscle, this may be of implication. Additionally, if you need to look at the comprehensive muscle performance of the triceps surae, then you may want to test in both positions to ensure that you're not missing anything, especially if there's like persistent symptoms, even though they're testing strong with the knee straight, right? So that being said, this is not my go-to because of those limitations of the contributions that can come from the larger muscle groups, even in the best of circumstances. So we will go knee straight for the time being. Why would you do knee straight supine versus prone? So if you're going to test isotonically, then when I'm supine, the foot is, the dorsiflexors are working against gravity, and the plantar flexors are assisting. I'll show you that in just a moment. The significance of that is that your dorsiflexors peter out really quick when they're in the supine position. As such, because they get fatigued, they can't get back to their max dorsiflex position, and thus they can't produce their full plantar flexion force, because their peak plantar flexion force happens at their max dorsiflexion. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So, okay, great. Took me a minute to kind of think through that and why I was seeing what I was seeing. And consistently, the machine has always taught me more and more about human biology. One thing that I have found around the foot and ankle is that I think unanimously all foot and ankle muscles, at least the extrinsic muscles, their length, so each muscle, right, has a different profile when it comes to length, force, curve, but all the muscles extrinsically have a greater force curve when they are on stretch. So this has implications for how you train it, but it also has implications for how you test it. So for instance, and I know we're doing plantar flexion and dorsiflexion, but like, for instance, our common exercises with the E version with like the TheraBand, the TheraBand resistance is counter to what the strength curve would actually be. So we're like strengthening them in a very shortened position with the resistance, and thus it doesn't really match up. You would actually want to find exercises where they're strengthened in an elongated position. Same thing goes for your plantar flexion and dorsiflexion. So with that, all those contextual factors out of the way, let's just talk about the mechanics of the setup. Okay, so the chair is going to be in a completely reclined position. The foot and the ankle attachment, just because there's less variation in the stack height of someone's foot to ankle, this doesn't really change significantly in regards to how far you slide this up, but you do want to make sure that you're probably at an even number such that you can be sure that you're going to replicate it from one time point to the next. Okay. If you come around to the back side, it has a couple of additional elements. So you can add in a slight eversion or inversion application by just pulling this, and I'm usually do it in the middle one. I spoke to one of the representatives at CSM more recently. He actually felt as though, if you look at someone's plantar flexion, that there's actually a little bit of a supination that goes with it, and he was of the belief that you should maybe accommodate to that with slight inversion. Especially, you see people from all different walks of life and different traumas, and so if their leg is somewhat, if there's an osteotomy or there's a fixed rotation, right, you would want to accommodate that with their orientation, or if they had a really egregious anteversion or retroversion at their hip, that would be another instance where you may want to add that rotation. The second thing for modification would be this pin here. If you come around, this is going to allow you to adjust to the size of the foot. Almost unanimously, I put it all the way down. I think there's one very petite foot where I needed to move it up. Otherwise, it is as you see it here. You would need to manipulate this device or this attachment if you were going to do the inversion and eversion, but we'll save that for the time being. Okay. The chair height. So the chair height is such that when the person lies down, that their knee is somewhat in a slightly hyperextended state. And you won't know the appropriate height of the chair until you get them down. I have found that while setting up, I'll give them a little bit of a prop and give them a pillow, or I'll even use the black bolster, which we'll see in a moment. All right, so Pilar, maybe I set you up.
Oh,
you're good. So not everybody needs it.
Can you produce force at 30 degrees of dorsiflexion?
we'll find out.
Okay, and then the caveat that I'll usually, people again are different heights, so I'll adjust it such that the pad usually hits them right above the patella, and I'll strap that in. The non-testing limb, in this case the left, is gonna, I almost always have them just kind of put it there. Saves their back a little bit, and then I do go one waist belt over like that. That would be the setup. And then the other thing is that you really need to push them in such that they're really up against it, and not just so they're touching it. So here, I really want to make sure she's there. I give it one more tick, and then we'll lock it. Okay, so this is similar to like your ski boot or your snowboard boot. For those who rollerblade, that too. All right, and just make sure that the tongue is up, because personally, I find when I do this one that my foot consistently goes to sleep no matter how quickly I set it up. All right, and then it's a little bit off to the side, so I just do that. And essentially, you want to get it to the point where loosen that a little bit. You want to get it to the point at which when you ask them to move their ankle, that there's minimal dissociation between their ankle or their foot in this case and the foot plate. You want to see that they move as one. So there's a little bit of wiggle room. We're going to be dialoguing here in a moment, so I'm not going to crank you on. But then in a moment when you actually go through the test, I would have you lie back. You won't be able to reach the handles, so then I would just have you grab onto, latch onto something firm on the chair. Yeah. So that is indeed the setup. Any questions? You can stop the video.